Hi, everybody. I'm Rand Hoppy. I'm the executive director of the Jack Kirby Museum. Holy smokes, what a weekend we are having. This is day two, near the end of day two of the 3 days for 103. We're celebrating what would have been Jack Kirby's 103rd birthday. Um, who am I here with, by the way?
You're here with Tom Kraft, president of the Jack Kirby Museum, and we're here with
Barry Ira Geller.
Yes. Hi, Barry. Good to see you.
Okay.
All right. So the idea for that we're doing here, and you've been watching the streams, yesterday and today, but I feel like I must repeat it every time. We are live on Facebook and YouTube, and on Twitter/Periscope. There are comments and chat areas for these videos, and you are more than welcome to type something in, to make comments and ask questions as we go along. We may we'll probably get around the end of the talk. We'll probably start addressing them, but feel free to do that. So let's get going.
All right. Well, first, I want to thank. Okay, that's the Bronx. That is really the Bronx.
There it is.
But I first want to thank you guys, the museum. You basically have brought me back to life. All this stuff I was doing when I was 30, and I'm back again to that creative. To quote Jeremy Kirby.
Yeah.
Jack wanted us to create as much as possible. And if I may start, I'm going to say that working with Jack was like the most phenomenal time that I ever had. And I want to say that the Lord of Light, science fiction land work was a state of mind where Jack had total freedom to explore all the issues, both spiritual and quantum, galactic, human, fantasy, and future reality. He could freely explore the themes I'm going to show you that was important to him. And that is why he decided to work with me in the beginning, in the first place, as an unknown producer, because when we first met, there was that love in his eyes, and they knew exactly who I was, and we just got together. So here it is. I'm going to start with myself, and I walked those streets when I was like 10, 8, 9, and the first things I was reading in the corner candy store next was Challengers of the Unknown. Actually, it started. This is my entry into Jack Kirby land and into comics through the visionary aspects that, strangely enough, I can trace all back to Jack. I think this was about 58. I was reading Challenges of the Unknown. I was 11 years old, and go on, and I would next, and I had this visions that came from reading Jack's comics, and here I am in the 61. That's a familiar year for Marvel, and here I am doing science fairs. My mother saved these things. They didn't save my comics, but they saved those things. But it's a first and third science fair for the Bronx science fairs. Next, please. And around that time, I was reading all the comics from the local newsstands, X-Men, everything, Fantastic Four, and something was happening to me. I was a science student by day, and by night, I'm reading these comics, and I'm going, "What the?" and next, please. And so at 21, I mean, I won the science fairs. I went to college, sort of, but at 21, I actually co-founded a company called Intermediate General Corporation, and I got into holography for mass advertising, and I taught myself solid states physics with the help of some local professors. And then at 22, I go over to MIT and I try to hire the inventors of holography, Jurison and Patniks. And they looked at me like, hey, here's this guy, here's this kid, one of our students, and he's trying to hire us. And I'm honestly saying, no. I had all these ideas for holographic advertising, 1969, and it didn't happen. But they ended up forming their own company later to do the very same thing that I wanted. Next, please.
Sure.
And so I actually put together a company, but then there was a crash in 1971, and Zoom. We all were riding in the back seats of old cars, but at the time I was on fire, and I came up with this concept of a new energy source called quantum frequency coherence, but I didn't know what to do with it. I'm showing it to different professors and different scientists, and we're talking about stuff, but somehow, so I went to like became a filmmaker, a writer. I got into writing, and I kept on doing more research on it. Was like I was two people. I still am very much in the creative, and at the same time, I'm still working on several patents, several technologies right now in holography. But at that time, I think, what is it, 1965, and so I got into the National Playwrights Company, and then as a writer, ta-da, I started working for this big TV producer who had done Run for Your Life and SWAT, and he actually, I met him because I was sending him my treatment for a new TV show called The Evolutionaries, where like the earth blows up, and the only people who can help it is this group of scientists. I'm remembering this now.
All right.
Who project themselves into the future to change the past.
All right.
The show is zap, 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 sort of like what was it called? A Route 66, and but from the future. Anyway, next. All right. So at that point, I bought the Lord of Light rights. I learned how to, from working in television as an associate, and at this point, I don't know if it's on the next slide, but let's see. Can you go to the next slide? Yes. The decision to work with Jack Kirby started with my realization in early 1978. No other artist in the world could faithfully create Lord of Light with me. The Lord of Light novel, powerful Hugo Award-winning novel by Roger Zelazny, who had done the Amber series, who had done all kinds of other things. I just bought the rights to. Can we go back one?
Oh, sure, of course.
And so what I started to do is I called up Jack, and then I'm going to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But I also called up John Chambers, Buckminster Fuller, Ray Bradbury, Paulo Soleri, Don Broadbent, who was famous at that year in the Time book as the first very commercial holographer, and we all got together. I mean, I'm giving an overview, and then I'm going to get a little specific.
Okay.
But what it was is like Buckminster Fuller was going to build my dome, which I didn't have a chance to stick in, but he tried to build a dome over Manhattan for the 1964 World's Fair.
You did.
And of which I went, And so that's how we started working. But everything was based on my work with Jack. Everyone loved Jack Kirby. And we were just creating stuff that we were going to build.
Yeah.
This wasn't a film. I mean, yes, film set, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Sorry, Roger. But yes, it was the whole idea. It started out as a film, of course. I had a whole bunch of film sets. I'm going to show you. Go to the next one. Can we make that any bigger?
A little bit. A little bit.
Someone can see it.
It's the best I can do.
Can you read it?
Sure. Terminal of the Gods.
Okay.
Grand Central Station of Heaven.
Good. And go down to the Thunder Chariot launching.
Thunder Chariot launching complex. Here the Thunder Chariot is housed and launched. A NASA-type complex. The Thunder Chariot is equipped with the latest laser, tractor beam, and repeller electronic weapons, and uses a combination of anti-grav and jet power. On the exterior of the building, there is tier upon tier of colored quartz crystal panels. As the Thunder Chariot is energized, the colors of the panels change until reaching such high oscillation that the panels turn white and the Thunder Chariot is launched.
Great. Let's go to the next one.
Fantastic.
And
that was fun. All right.
Now this is a little segue here.
All right.
So I called up Jack and we started a talk, and you can see there's March 29th, first attempt to call him. The next page.
And just to mention, this is the actual original address book that Barry used in order to organize himself during the project.
Yes, appointment book.
Yes.
And it was, I found these, I'm telling you, everything I'm saying today, as I remember my working with Jack, I am remembering and recreating who I am. It's taken 40 years, but who cares? We're here now.
Here we are. Yeah.
And, so that's the value of the Jack Kirby Museum and you guys. You're bringing that light that he was, and that's what my purpose is too. So let's go back here.
Go back?
No. Forward. And there's another one you can see on the right called back. Call Jack Kirby and confirm our first meetings.
Yes.
47. Yes. Next page. And
here you're having dinner with Jack Kirby.
Yeah, that's right. Right over there. And that's when I brought to him the particular script designs, set designs. And at that point, it's still just a film. Somewhere into July, next one.
Sure.
And we have the 28th. This is the first session. Pardon me if I'm going back and forth, but
it's okay.
It's just the way. So we have Jack Kirby, 10 o'clock, and then lunch. And it was amazing to find this because that was when we first talked about the first drawing. And at this point, Science Fiction Land was the plan. Because the first thing that we did was the Terminal of the Gods, which was the opening of Science Fiction Land in Aurora. Next. Okay. And so you look at, on the right, I have Jack Kirby inking at 11 o'clock. That was 3 days after. I hadn't seen anything. I never saw Jack pencil at all. But next, can you make that a little bit bigger? But anyway, it's okay. If you can you, I don't know if you can see it, Rand, the first one up there.
Mike Royer.
Yeah.
All of them say Mike Royer.
August 1st, Terminal of the Gods payment.
Yeah, August 1st, yeah.
So
and then
finding this was like, wow, okay, next. And I guess this pretty much, we're now on the 28th, and basically we're now doing drawings every week or something like this.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And like as we start investigating the script designs, the set designs next, and this actually shows again, it was the first presentation booklet I put together just prior to Science Fiction Land, and there's Jack with above Stephen Grise and Ali Akbar Khan and John Chambers, etc. Stacy Shulman just won an Oscar at that time for his short film Gravity's Rainbow. So I hired him. I told him, hey, work with me. Okay, next. And another person that I had on the project, my consultant, was a man named Art Kunkin, who had created and ran the Los Angeles Free Press newspaper. But he also had the greatest Tibetan Buddhist library around on the West Coast.
Yep.
And I hired him too, and we would just pour over stuff. Look at the date, August 11th. And so now we're 2 weeks in to the beginning of when we started the drawings. Science Fiction Land had started at that point. And it's, if we look at this, how go to the second paragraph.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. He refers to certain books, and like Star Wars had just come out. Anyway, so this is how I gave all this to Jack. Next. And here was our purpose. Here was to create vast buildings and statues for a theme park called Science Fiction Land, based upon the original ideas I had of set designs for the film Lord of Light. But the important thing is that everything that Jack had created in the past exploded. In other words, his prior life, it's taken me a long time to realize I really didn't have anything to do with Jack's comics life, except that the fact that I was the total consummate reader, and that it changed my life.
Right.
I went from science student to science fiction myself.
That's right.
I dropped out of high school. I was 2 years ahead. I dropped out at 15. I was a senior, and started writing poetry and hanging out with Allen Ginsberg. Anyway,
but Barry, at this point, Jack had just finished doing the Eternals, so his contract with Marvel was over, but he hadn't started in animation yet. So this is like a time in between the two.
That's right. Yeah. And well, it was a contiguous universe. Because, like as I said earlier, we were doing, we were going to build everything. But yes, his first Terminal of the Gods and a few things had that Eternals feeling, that Mayan Inca feeling to it.
True.
And then as I gave him more books, big, huge books on and pictures, he then changed more to the Hindu style. Because Lord of Light, the novel, which won Hugo Award, in 1967, basically was about these gods, but you're not sure whether they're from our history, from another planet called Earth, URTH, or from the future of Earth. But at any rate, they're here, and they speak English, and the guy that's the head of the novel, or the hero of the whole novel, he's a renegade. He becomes Siddhartha. He doesn't want to deal with his old friends. And that's his story. and so like in the end, he has to fight the gods to free mankind, and like but I'll get into it more. But working with Jack was like being, I said this once, being strapped to a rocket.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to step up to the plate. I mean, you know, you don't work with Jack without, but I didn't realize it at the time. I thought everybody worked with Jack the way I did. Right. And I really, but it's like as soon as I would enter, as soon as we would start talking, the universe changed and the hours went by. And so like so what we were doing was the grandest of architectural plans that anyone ever thought of. Why not? I brought in all the top scientists and people in the world. I was coordinating them. That's what I did as a producer. I was a visionary guy. And like and as I said before, with Paulo Soleri and levitating cars, vast dome, this wasn't comics anymore.
You're not in Kansas anymore.
So it's impossible to explain. Here's Jack Kirby at one time in his life doing these incredible culture changing. How many times can one person change the culture of a country?
Yeah.
And then it happened again. Move on. So hard to read, but like there's, if you can read that, Rand, the did we read the Thunder Chariot?
I already read the Thunder Chariot.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's
Next.
Okay. Next. Okay. All right.
Now, this was about 2 or 3, 4 drawings into it. Don't have the exact date in front of me, but again, as you can see, the North. I mean, I don't know. I just came up with the name, but the thing is, there is that Thunder Chariot. There is the complex of the glowing lights and the big snake theme. Roz would always say, "Jesus, this guy's into snakes." I had the Raga throne. I had the hand of Shiva. I had the Brahma on a big snake throne, and there was funny. But this is actually that one that on the bottom right was the planetarium I got from the Bronx, the Hayden Planetarium my father would take me to when I was 6.
Yeah.
And like, but this is Jack. This is where he took that description that you just heard, and I put it there specifically so we can see what is going on and how he worked, and he turned it into this. Not bad, huh? And there I am, like showing, you interviewed me a long time ago, and I had the book that I took the original design from that Art Kunkin had referred me to.
Yeah.
Called the the Tibetan Buddhist stupa. In other words, for them, each level was a level of consciousness.
Yep.
The Hebrews call it the different orbs or sephirot of the tree of life. Same thing. Right. That's a different language.
Darn humans.
Same thing also with the guys down there in Jerusalem. We're all talking about the same guy. Next, please. So this is, again, the first thing we did. The first thing that Jack did. Yeah. And I'm going to, at the time, I was so astonished. But you can see on the upper left, that was his working of the dome. It was like, I couldn't figure out how he was going to put the dome in the picture. But he did. Right. And like, I'm going to show later iterations of this in a few minutes. But this was the beginning. This was the entrance to science fiction land, the first thing he did. And when I was interviewed by the Sons of the Revolutionaries around 2012 or 13 when that film came out.
Yeah.
What was that film again? Argo. Oh yeah.
Argo.
Joking. but like they interviewed and about, because they were really concerned about Hollywood and Persia,
right,
thing. And I'm in their book called Zaman. But I asked them, well, what was the most important drawing? What influenced you the most? And the guy immediately said, I mean, he's a curator for museums now, very bright young man. He said, Terminal of the Gods. And I went, what? I mean, it was my least seller. I mean, for the posters that I was doing at the time.
Right.
But I just, honestly, it's like, he said, because it represented to his culture the leaving of the Shah and the return of their ancient religion.
Wow.
Now, I'm sort of getting ahead of myself. This is what the CIA used, and among other drawings. But to hear that from this guy, no one in America, the CIA didn't know that, what this guy had just told me. And this is when the whole realization hit me of how much Jack's work changed. Not just changed, but recreated our entire world over and over and over again. And that, like a crazy science nerd like me, with, as you saw, have that background of doing all kinds of wild stuff and almost raising money to do them every now and then. But that's why we work together, because I had no bounds.
Yeah.
I wanted to change the world, quote unquote, by expanding the imagination of children. I was sick and tired of the insanity. Here I am saying the same thing. I'm almost 73. So next, please. And so, okay, planetary control room. Here's another example. We'll make it quick. Of, do you want to read that? The planetary control room.
Chief telecommunications complex of the entire planet. Called by some the Tower of Four Winds. It is topped by a great crystal which condenses the electrical, magnetic, and gravitic forces of the planet. Here, in the great Raga wheel, slowly turns and emits an ethereal aum-like sound as it receives the sublime energies of the planet and distributes it to daughter communication complexes in the temples around Earth. The Raga wheel is also the main energy source which powers heaven. The gods watch the temples of Earth along several tiers of television monitors, detection devices, holographic video phone projectors, and weather and geological control instruments. Along one of the walls is a 50-foot television screen, which the chief gods personally use to communicate with priests on Earth when they have to. Here, the pinnacle of heaven's technology is cared for by men and demigods who hover about, hoping to increase their rank by showing proficiency in planetary control.
Excellent. Next.
Thank you.
Next. Bing.
And there it is. Boom.
So, what's interesting about this, I mean, yes, we worked together. This took a long time, but what he turned out, if you see the behind the cube, the hand of Shiva, whatever I just got the name, but there's that television screen projecting holographic images. This is 1978, sir. And it does come from Roger's book when Sam, Sid Arthur, goes back to get a new body, speaks to his old buddy Brahma, by giving a couple of shekels to the head of the temple, and they said, no, I don't want to just pray to God. I want your television screen. And the priest goes, oh. And so that's where that idea came from, this giant television screen. And where are we now? 42 years later.
I think we could finally do it now. You know, we have 20-foot television sets and, you know, screens and so forth and holograms. And
Yeah,
think if you build it, if you had the ability to build science fiction land now.
that's correct. But this is the biggest piece in that it was in 2 panels.
Right.
Did you want to say anything about it very quickly, Tom, as museum president?
It's just beautiful. It was pieced together in two large, what is it, like 20 by 18 by 20
Right.
panels. It's just a beautiful piece. It shows Kirby's techno ability perfectly. It matches everything that this is about, that Jack could do.
And Mike Royer really knocked it out of the park too.
Yeah, Mike Royer inkings and all this.
What I found was that with the idea that we were building this, and scientists were here talking to Jack, looking at stuff, hired architects, we were building it. And at least that was the plan. But that was the state of mind.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been trying to, you know, I failed to say before, and I'm here today dressed in my 50th anniversary Jack and Roz meeting, remarriage. I wore this, so I wore it with 1970s look.
Nice.
And, anyway, but this is the total insanity and just beautiful mind and vision of what we were doing to make a whole new technology possible, many technologies. Next, please. Hostel of Hakana. This is from the Earth. I'll quickly, well, you know what? Let's go to the next slide, because this is of Hakana, and what it was saying was a Taj Mahal. I said to Jack, I want a Taj Mahal, and here on the top right, interior, exterior arcades, hovercraft, auditorium shows. Jack said to me when he handed it to me that he threw everything into it but the kitchen sink. I swear. And, you know, which is that old, it's an old New York expression. My mother used to say that.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, so next, please. Now, this comes along and it's astonishing. I had given him some books by now. This is sort of in the middle. Each one of those buildings on the right where I was selling, and I have the paperwork and the letters and everything to different countries and different corporations, and that's what was getting paying for the film.
And the big figures are what? Those are supposed to be holograms?
No, these are statues, 100-foot
physical statues. Wow.
But this is one of the best architectural pieces ever that I've, you know, and I want to show you just how much. Go to the next. Bang. I decided to recently just take a section of that and blow it up. Go back one.
Sure.
Look at that over here between the center goddess is Kali, and that's Shiva on the right. And then there's, again, this is in the theme park itself, Mahasamatman or Sam. And then there's the buildings. Go forward again. Bang. So you can see the blues and the reds. And on that lower right in the back, I never even knew that existed until I blew it up. It's a nightclub.
That's right.
Go back again, just to show you.
Yeah, there it is.
Who would know? And then come forward. And so in doing this, this is where the colorist made change, because she had not any kind of a background in comics at all.
Who's she? Who is she?
Oh, sorry about that. Wally Ann Marie Wharton, but she had been doing dolls and designs and portraitures and stuff for 30, 40 years. Anyway, but again, this is what it communicated to her. The lines, go back again, and she took holly and made that into pins, and we started doing all kinds of stuff, but it's right here. That's what if I blew it up even more, go to right between his legs, Rand, there it is, right between that. Look at that. What is that? You don't know. Now go forward. Bang. And so this is the work that he was doing. I have no clue. This is the pure Jack Kirby, who was free to do everything he ever wanted to.
Yeah.
And the idea of building it. Okay, go next. Another version of Mahasamatman Sam that we've seen in some posters.
And also in back of you.
Oh, yes. That's right. This one, the one behind me is 5 feet by 3 feet. And anyway, next. And towards the end, I handed Jack this. I said, because, I put everything together and did this drawing. It's just a pencil sketch. But you can see, like the upper left there, jet tube transporter. And then there's some places, Brahma's building. Anyway, go next. Bang. Jack turned it around and there it is. Yeah. And there's our here we can do is our center there. Anyway, this is the various different sets. It takes a while to really look at, but each one of them is a building that has been specifically designed. Architects were consulted, and a few had some heart attacks for the cantilevered buildings and that I wanted to do. Well, how are we going to hold it up? Right. Figure out a way. These are big gardens that just revolve around. Next.
Yeah, so just to mention that within that diagram, all the other details that we've been looking at, like Terminal of the Gods, and that those are all, you can identify all those little buildings within the diagram.
That's right. Do you want me to, we have time? What's our time here? Oh, well, we have time.
Yeah.
Go back one. And in the center, I'm glad you did that. In the center, this was the main thing I was showing to bankers. You got to realize this is not, the drawing is a drawing, but it's something I take to Ray Bradbury, or I showed it to Paolo Soleri, the famous architect, who was, I think, I have a letter, it's not here right now, too many things, but he committed his commitment letter to design with all of us. And this is the guy that at that time, 300 people would fly in all over the world to help him build his arcologies. Yeah. And he was part of the team. Jack, see, that's the whole thing. The big story was we actually had a team of these inventors and scientists that were building what Jack created. And that's the difference. And there isn't a Stanley among them. We're all a team together. Yeah. So in the center is something from the novel called Mile High Spire. That was the spaceship parties and the god, things like that. And like the back circle is where all our hotels would be. And I did actually have 100 acres of land. I used Disney's original concepts to do mine. And I also hiring Epcot guys who at the time were just building Epcot. Environmental, what was it, prototype of tomorrow. Is that right?
Right.
And so, or something.
Yep. Yeah, of tomorrow.
So back down over in the front, if you can see, there's our Taj Mahal, and there's the Terminal of the Gods is right there where I'm pointing, but I don't think you can. Yeah, there we go, right, a little bit above it, about there, that one.
Yeah, that's the terminal. Yeah,
and there's the jet tube transporter.
Yep.
And so we have a whole bunch of other things. On the right, what is that wormy thing? I was trying to duplicate Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean. So I had some ridiculous long thing of someone going around and visiting different planets and different life forms. And I have all those paintings that I actually commissioned. So next, please. And this is an interview. We're towards the end, and like go to the next one. Oh, I'm sorry. Back up. On the right side, I see it, so I can't see it. But if you can, Ran, you can see, start where it says, I wanted to get involved. Can you see it?
Yep.
Can you read it?
I wanted to get involved because I am a concept man. I can get to the nut of a story. My way of looking at things and the way that I develop is exactly what this film needs. That's my background. This is a very special project. It's very challenging. It's also very powerful.
Go on.
Kirby maintains that as the story was so unique, the approach has to be also. It has to have a new way of looking at the subject. It is also going to be very valuable to humanity, Kirby says.
And the next paragraph.
Film is going to have a tremendous impact in the world. It will show enormous strength. It will allow the Eastern man and the Western man to relate to each other. And once mankind relates, they will never again have to fight. They will understand each other's needs and idiosyncrasies.
And
I believe that this film and the way we are conceiving it can contribute to saving the world. I had to be involved, and I most definitely am.
So that really is a statement that sums up everything.
Yeah.
And like, I had no idea. I mean, I had my PR person interview all the guys, because, you know, they each have a phone book for resumes.
Yeah.
And you know, I needed something original and different from my investment book, which had everything in there, figures, this, that, number of people visiting. And so anyway, so I had people interviewed. And I have a John Chambers interview, for example, that says half the reason he's doing it was to work with Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
Of course, is my close. I closed on him by saying, look, you made a few million for 20th. How about making a few million for yourself? And that's how I got John Chambers. And anyway.
And John Chambers worked on Planet of the Apes. He was
John Chambers.
Mission Impossible.
Yep.
Yes.
Makeup artist.
Won the Oscar for Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
He created a whole, just like Kirby, a whole new culture, a whole new slice of life on looking, because like, where else do you see chimpanzees actually be as powerfully or empowered as people, and the emotions? That original film, fantastic. And that's the guy we're working with. Unfortunately, or fortunately, he also happened to be working for the CIA.
Oops.
Oops. And before we read this, a quick note, a quick little story. we're in my house in the Canyons, Mulholland Drive or something, having a production meeting, and we're talking about Marlon Brando being Brahma, and John's there, and some other guys are there from the whatever, and John says, "Well, I can make him younger. That's not a problem. I work for the CIA. I do this for the CIA. I invented something." And we all looked at him and we went, "Yeah, right." I went, "Yeah, right." But the reality is, when the shit hit the fan, excuse the expression, John took our production drawings and my script, go back a little bit, to the CIA. See, I was holding a coloring contest in November 28th, 1979, and like Jack had just turned, I think, 61, and earlier that summer, and like so this was the thing. And then they took this. I don't have a copy of it up on this slide, but they took my name off and just said, "Argo, go to the next." And so I have to say this because I started out with I had a patent. I had another patent in 2000. And when all of this came out, no one knew about it, 2001. And I said to my patent attorneys, I kept the madness up. I patented and sold some internet technology patents that were amazing, virtual servers and identity verification systems, all very interesting. Look them up sometime. But the CIA, I'm sorry. I mentioned that because I actually said to my attorneys when we found this out, well, can we sue the CIA? And these $500 an hour guys, they all looked at me and they went, this is 2000. We don't think so. So probably the greatest irony in the universe, such negative forces of destiny used Jack Kirby's drawings, like the Terminal of the Gods, to do good. They freed 6 Americans from Iran. The science fiction land Lord of Light drawings changed the outcome of the revolution for the USA and brought Jack's work into history. And that is all one has to say about the CIA and public. They didn't know what they were doing. They were in and out, just like Mendez is right. And here it is, the CIA Museum. There's Jack's Terminal of the Gods, man. And so, sorry. When I saw that, okay, so we literally wait, stop. We literally changed the culture. What would have happened? What do you think would have happened? I just thought of this last night. What would have happened if they didn't rescue those 6 people and they got executed?
Right.
Would have been war.
That's the value. And I've been talking to all the magazines for the last 7 years and finally established that this is the history that Jack Kirby and myself, but his work changed the world. It doesn't matter if it's comics. He changed comics 3 or 4 times, and then his work goes on to alter history next. So I come along now, and I found the colorist, and I went, whoa. And as we began to feel more from his original art, next, I built these, a place called the best toy company in the universe called Unbox Industries. They just took 2 years to make that center model. And I thought, oh, well, this is great. It's finally coming out. And they all sold out in a few hours. I go, wait a minute. Wow. And as you can see, what Wally Ann Marie did was take the colors on just the right side from the original next sculptor. And so I guess that's it.
We have a couple of questions.
Only a couple.
You know what? I'm gonna hop out and go and make sure David's getting set up well. But Tom, you hang out here and close it out. All right?
Sounds good.
What do we have? I think we have 10 minutes.
Yep. Just read. We need a movie. It's never too late.
A movie.
We need that movie. You need to make that movie.
Oh. Well, I think we're gonna do something. There's guys still optioning that, and they really want to make it happen. And I hope it's a strange situation, Hollywood situation. The biggest science fiction producer, well, one of the two or three in the world. Gail Ann Hurd, who did Terminator for a beginning, and the Walking Dead for the last 10 years, and Hulk, the film, had it under option for a few years, and then, well, Universal decided not to buy it, and it really upset everybody, including Gail, because she really wanted to do it since she was in college, even. So, what is this? The dream?
The dream would be to have a Hawkwind music for Lord of Lights, since they wrote songs about it.
Well, I have a lot of that. Yes. But I still think it can happen. I believe the science fiction land in the present, what would that do? Can we herald the next 40 years? It just takes crazy people like you and me, Tom, and a few other people. I mean, so this clearly, I'm still here, and I've been brought back to life by you and by Jack's work, and the desire to see what we did there really shared with the world. And you're making that possible today on his birthday for me and for everybody else.
Well, we're grateful that you're here.
It's an amazing venture, and it's just, in a lot of ways, just beginning again.
Okay, was Jack already familiar with the book prior to his involvement with the project?
No. He never
Okay.
read the book. He never read my script either. But he read the breakdown, and he read the set designs, and of course he looked at all these big giant books that I bought him. Oh man, I bought a book from Hollywood, one of these bookstores at that time, and next to me was a Superman #1 for $300.
Oh, jeez.
I bought a book for $150 to give to Jack.
Oh well.
Anyway, next.
The concept of the book was certainly almost perfectly tailored to him, for him.
Just like I said, when in 1978, I talked to a few artists, and I was saying, do something like Jack. Do something like Jack. And, so it was at that point I realized that Jack. Now, I hadn't been reading comics. I was in film school, business school, blah, blah, on the street, writing scripts, blah, 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 blah. It's how I got into Lord of Light, by turning down a job, a real job, and then someone saying, well, we're doing something with Lord of Light. I went on it, and I had read the book a few years earlier, and I was crazy about it. Jack Kirby was the only person that I knew could do it. So I called him up, and he said hi.
The rest is history.
When I first met Jack, there was so much love just streaming from his eyes, and Roz, and we talked about utter nonsense, but we talked about goals. We talked about the gods. oh, if there was a Jack Kirby movie, who would you hire to be the actor?
Somebody said,
It's very hard to say. But Brando, I saw we were really set on Marlon at that time, and like, but it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. But we got so ensconced into the technology. At that time, magnetic levitation was just beginning in Japan, and how I approached with Jack, with all the guys. I didn't need something to go across the United States. I just need something to go a few miles to the airport. So, so we would do improvise, put magnets under the ground, and so that the car would sort of seem like it was levitating.
right. With that, we're going to have to close, have to go
Okay.
on to the next show. But I want to thank everybody for attending. Thank you, Barry, for being part of the celebration with the Kirby Museum.
No better celebration that I have ever had than being with you guys this weekend. And I want to thank you for bringing him back to my life.
Well, thank you. Bye, everyone.